Welcome back to The Explainer. So let me ask you something. Have you ever eaten what you thought was a perfectly healthy meal, only to check your blood pressure and see a number that just makes you go, what is going on? It is an incredibly confusing and frustrating problem for so many people. Well, today we are going to crack the code on this whole post-meal mystery. Let's just kick things off with a pretty provocative idea, one that might completely change how you look at this. The reason your blood pressure medicine isn't controlling these spikes is because it's targeting the wrong thing. See, the root cause isn't really a blood pressure disease. It's all about how your body is reacting to the food you put in it.
And that brings us right to the big question. Why does your blood pressure spike after you eat? You're doing everything right, you're following your doctor's orders, you're taking your medication, but then you have a meal and boom, that number just climbs right back up. It can feel like you're fighting a losing battle. But I'm here to tell you what you're experiencing isn't random at all. It's actually a predictable pattern, and today we're going to figure out exactly why it happens.
So our investigation really begins by looking at a typical day. The clues to why your blood pressure is spiking aren't found in just one single reading. Nope, they're hidden in the rhythm and the patterns of your daily life, your activities, and of course, your meals.
Let's just walk through a timeline, okay? Look at this. The day starts off perfectly fine, right? 120/70, stable. After a nice morning walk, the pressure drops to an amazing 105/62. This tells us the body is calm, it's relaxed. But then, things start to change. At 12:30 after that first meal, we see a spike up to 140/75. And it gets worse. A few hours later, it hits 150/90 and just stays there all evening. So what on earth is causing these wild swings?
All right, here is our first major clue. That morning walk, it puts your body into a calm, rest and digest mode. That's why your blood pressure drops so nicely. But eating immediately after that walk sends a really mixed signal. Your body has to suddenly divert all this blood to your stomach for digestion, and that puts a lot of stress on something called the vagus nerve, which is basically the superhighway between your gut and your brain. Your brain can get confused by this sudden shift, and it ends up overcompensating later with a big rebound spike in blood pressure. And here it is, the specific trigger for that first spike? Rajma, or kidney beans with brown rice. Now you look at that on paper and you think, that's healthy. But for a system that's already sensitive, this heavy dose of carbs and fiber can be really hard to process. It leads to this big delayed release of insulin, which a few hours later directly pushes your blood pressure up.
Which brings us to that peak reading, 150/90. And listen, this is the most important piece of the puzzle right here. This spike happened even after the person took their prescribed blood pressure medication. That is the smoking gun. It's definitive proof that whatever is causing this spike is not what the medicine is designed to fix. Something else is going on. So the evidence is pretty clear, right? This is not just a simple case of high blood pressure. In this next section, we're going to stop blaming the blood vessels and finally unmask the real culprits behind all this.
And here it is, the diagnosis. This is the big aha moment. What we're actually looking at is not essential hypertension, which is the most common kind of high blood pressure. No, this is a very specific condition called postprandial sympathetic rebound. I know it sounds super technical, but trust me, understanding what this means is the absolute key to fixing the problem.
So who are the culprits in this mystery? Well, it turns out there are 4 of them. First up, these huge insulin spikes you get from carb-heavy meals. Second, that vagus nerve stress we just talked about. Third, a metabolism that's just not getting the support it needs when it needs it. And finally, just plain old poor digestion. The gas and bloating that literally adds physical pressure inside your body. Let's break down that mouthful of a term, postprandial sympathetic rebound. It's simpler than it sounds. Postprandial just means after a meal. When you eat, your calming nervous system sends blood to your gut. But in this condition, your fight or flight system, your sympathetic system, totally overreacts. It rebounds way too hard, squeezes your blood vessels shut, and just shoots your blood pressure through the roof. It's simply an overcorrection. This chart just lays it all out perfectly. On one side, you've got this massive stress being put on your system from the food. On the other side, you have really low metabolic support to actually deal with that stress. And then look at the third bar. You can see how little impact that standard BP medication has. It's like bringing a water pistol to a house fire because it's not designed to fix a metabolic problem. Okay, so now that we've figured out the problem and we've identified the culprits, we don't have to guess at the solution anymore. It's time to lay out a really clear 4-step action plan to get things back in balance.
Here we go, 4 simple changes you can make immediately. Step 1, wait. Just wait. Give your system at least 30 minutes to reset after that walk before you eat. Step 2, time your support. If you're on thyroid medication, for example, time it so it's active during your meal. Step 3, eat less often. Try switching to 2 main meals. This gives your whole digestive system a much-needed break. And step 4, and this one is a game changer, walk for just 10 minutes right after you finish eating. Seriously, this alone can knock 20 to 30 points off a blood pressure spike. Now, those daily habits are absolutely key, but the real foundation for long-term stability, that's built with what's on your plate. So let's talk about how to design your stability diet. This slide shows the whole dietary shift perfectly. On the left, you've got the trigger foods, mostly high-carb stuff that spikes your insulin or causes a lot of gas. We're swapping those out for the stabilizing foods on the right. We're talking high-protein, low-insulin options like paneer, which is a fresh Indian cheese, soya chunks, curd or yogurt, and tons of vegetables. These foods calm your system down instead of shocking it.
And just look at how powerful this one change is. This diet doesn't just solve one problem. It goes after all 4 of our culprits at the same time. It keeps your insulin stable. It calms down that vagus nerve because digestion is so much easier. It supports your metabolism with good protein, and it gets rid of the gas and bloating that was adding all that physical pressure. It's a total win-win-win-win.
So what does this actually look like on a plate? It's really simple and delicious. For breakfast, maybe some paneer bourgie. That's a savory scramble of cheese and veggies. For lunch, a huge bowl of vegetables with protein and a side of curd. And for the evening, something light like fruit and nuts. And notice, rice is just an optional side dish, and you only have a little bit after you've already eaten your protein. It's a complete flip of how most people structure their meals.
If you only take away one single practical tip from this whole explainer, please let it be this one. At every single meal, eat your protein and your fiber, your paneer, your soya, your veggies, before you even touch any carbs like rice or chapati. This simple sequence acts like a buffer. It dramatically slows down how fast sugar hits your bloodstream and prevents that huge insulin surge that causes the whole problem in the first place.
You know, in the end, these crazy blood pressure spikes, they aren't a disease in the way we usually think about it. It's a form of communication. It is your body sending you a very, very clear signal about what it can and cannot handle. Those spikes aren't the enemy, they're the map. So the only question left is, are you ready to listen and become the detective of your own health?